Hungry Dads.
Welcome to Hungry Dads, your guided tour through the delicate and often overwhelming balancing act between food indulgences and social acceptance. And now, as always, here are your hosts, Rod Budget and Hugh Gallen.
Hello and welcome to episode 57 of the Hungry Dads podcast. I'm Rod Budget.
I'm Hugh Gallen, and tonight we have a very exciting interview with Mike Moser of Echelon Foods, and he's going to talk to us about their Turducken, which is exciting for us because this will be our second installment about turduckens, appropriately after Thanksgiving. Rod, you prepared the Echelon Turducken, which is a pre-prepared frozen turducken, compared to the turducken I did last year, which was from scratch. And I'm not going to rehash that, but you should go back to that episode and listen to hear about the poultry crime scene that I created in my kitchen with the knives and the deboning and the skin and the meat. It was not a pretty sight.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but I will say the pre-made turducken was quite easy and excellent.
Before we get into turduckens, Rod, I have a quick question for you. Is there any Halloween candy still in your house?
Funny you should ask. Our kindergartner has been allowed one piece of candy per day since Halloween, and she is down to 3 pieces of candy. She's down to such a low amount of candy that I can no longer steal without her knowing it, but there are still 3 pieces of candy left in our house.
Right, 3 pieces. We're in early December, which is quite an amount of time. So up until recently, up until maybe you were in the single digits, you were still pilfering candy, is that correct?
I was still pilfering up to the point where I was called out by the kindergartner, which alarmed me and shamed me terribly. I was sitting on our couch, and she said something about, "Where's my milk, wave," is what she said. And I assumed she was asking for her milk. And I said, "We only have milk with dinner, you know that. Your milk's in the refrigerator." And she said, "No, my Milky Wave." And I had taken a bite-sized Milky Way, which was the first time, admittedly, that it was the last of something I had taken of hers. I was being very careful to only take multiples. But she'd never really expressed an interest in it. It was a dark-colored, bite-sized Milky Wave. There were a lot of other dark-colored candy pieces in the pile. Yet, there she was, as a kindergartner, a true Hungry Dad protege. "Where's my Milky Wave?"
She had done a full accounting of her candy, if not on paper, in her brain. And yep, you were caught red-handed. Well, that's really interesting. So yeah, it sounds like you need to back off the pilfering. The reason I asked is because I was quite proud to announce that we still have Halloween candy in our house. And I was going to share it with you in a bragging type sense. And then as I decided to share it, I wondered if this was bragging rights or not. Because it speaks to a couple different things. And the first thing it speaks to is honestly, it is some self-control. I'm proud to announce that I didn't just eat all the candy right away by virtue of the fact that we still have some. Now, a couple of more realities to it. Not much of the good candy is left. It's mostly Tootsie Rolls, some Twizzlers, which we had a lot of.
Yeah.
Not that Twizzlers are bad, but they're not premium, I don't think. And a box of Dots, which I know most people don't consider premium, but I'm saving them because they're my favorite. A couple other realities that I now kind of have to confront are that this is maybe less indicative of my self-control and largely indicative of probably is a success. I think we successfully overbought this year. One of our Hungry Dad's tips from last year was, when you buy the candy, make sure you buy more than enough so that you have leftovers. You can still give the kids a bunch of candy, but still have some left over. And we pretty successfully did that. Our leftovers were the lower quality candy, but nonetheless. The other reality it speaks to, which I should probably be more ashamed of, is that contrary to advice that I've gotten more than once, I did not pick up any of the candy and bring it into work to share. I kept it all at home. I still have not evolved to the point where I can bring myself to get the candy out of the house.
Yeah, I'll say we also overbought successfully this year pretty extensively. We went with a strategy of buying one type of candy only to pass out, primarily because my lovely in-laws were going to stay behind and dole out the candy to the kids while we took our kids around the block. So we just bought the prepackaged Rice Krispie treats, which were a big hit and are excellent, and I highly recommend it to you and our listeners out there as a Halloween candy, but we didn't have any variety. That being said, we had an entire box of Rice Krispie treats left over, and there are about 60 Krispie treats in a box. So I just demolished those for 2 or 3 days, and there were still like 20 left. So my wife did finally confiscate them and took them to her office, but I got a good 40 Rice Krispie treats in about 3 days.
Hungry Dads.
Rod, I want to give an update to our listeners on the Beefy Crunch movement. If you've been listening to us at all over the last several months, you know exactly what the Beefy Crunch movement is. In case you don't, simply put, the Beefy Crunch movement is an online social movement, a group of people, 24 or 25,000 people strong, who are actively communicating through social media channels with Taco Bell on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, demanding that they bring back a burrito called the Beefy Crunch burrito. The reason I want to bring it up is because there is a substantial update in the Beefy Crunch movement. I think where we left off, we'd interviewed Richard several weeks ago. We heard all about the Beefy Crunch movement. Then after that, he implemented some new strategies online to try to get Taco Bell's attention. One of which was actually attending an online course that was being taught by one of the Taco Bell social media executives, and I think that was pretty keen. And he came out of that with a strategy incorporating the things that he'd learned from Taco Bell's media management. He created a new movement basically to be as annoying as possible to Taco Bell and to bring legions of fans to put a barrage on any attempt Taco Bell made to get social media traction on anything they were trying to push. So a new product, a new tagline, a new logo. The Beefy Crunch movement successfully flooded any of those Twitter messages, any of those Facebook messages with their Beefy Crunch message. And to the point where they were, by design and by title of their campaign, annoying. They annoyed Taco Bell. They annoyed other Taco Bell fans who want to talk about something different. And as a result, there is an outcome. Richard got a call from Taco Bell. The content of the call was sufficient to have Richard call a ceasefire on the campaign. They stopped for a period of a week, I think almost 2 weeks, and didn't hear any more from Taco Bell. They started to wonder if this was Taco Bell just playing games with them. Richard got back in touch with the legions of followers and said, all right, look, if I don't hear from them by the end of today, let's get back at it. He told everyone to stand by. By the end of that day, which was just a few days ago, he announced, yes, he'd heard from Taco Bell. They'd given him some very exciting news. And he announced the ceasefire should continue and everyone should stand by.
Yeah, this is obviously a very fluid situation. I just went to their Facebook page, Hugh, to check out their number of followers. They're up to 26,707, so it's really taking off. They have a nice Operation Ceasefire banner across the page, so the ceasefire still appears to be in effect.
So the most interesting development recently is that Richard has again been trying to communicate with his followers about what's happening. He has, by design, had to be somewhat tight-lipped. If he's to be believed, Taco Bell has told him things that he's under a confidentiality order to not share for the time being. He has been delegated the lead negotiator in this situation for the Beefy Crunch movement. And while a vast majority of the fans are excited, pleased, and extremely supportive, the most interesting responses are from the people who are maybe a little dubious, maybe a little doubtful. I'm looking at one right now. One of the members of the Beefy Crunch movement says, I'm sorry, saying this to Richard, I'm sorry, but who made you all powerful? What's stopping anyone else from creating their own page? Which would happen if you back down? Another series of messages I saw made the allegation that maybe Richard is being paid off by Taco Bell to initiate this ceasefire, and that he's in bed with Taco Bell and not truly on the side of the Beefy Crunch movement. Again, I got to emphasize, this is a vast minority of the people, but it does show how seriously people are taking this.
Yeah, I think anytime you get a large group, a social following like this, there's going to be some mutiny when things like this happen, when somebody has to be tight-lipped. I mean, who's to say he's not being paid off in perhaps Beefy Crunch burritos being sent directly to him by Taco Bell?
That's a pretty bold accusation there, Rod.
I was trying to think of the one thing that would lead him to kind of betray, and it's not really betrayal if he's getting his Beefy Crunches.
That's true.
Because that's his whole goal.
The love of the Beefy Crunch might cause you to betray the Beefy Crunch movement. It's that much of an addiction. God forbid Taco Bell's playing that dirty.
Hungry Dads!
And Rod, one more thing before we get to Mike and his turducken, and it is an announcement I saw. It's very preliminary right now, But given the attention that we have provided to the Do Us a Flavor, Lay's Do Us a Flavor Vote for Your Favorite campaign, I felt it was important to share this announcement that I heard about from M&M Mars. And it is that in 2016, from March to June, peanut M&Ms are going to offer 3 new original flavors, and they are going to give everyone the opportunity to vote on which one is their favorite. By all accounts, it looks to be structured the same way as the Lay's Do Us a Flavor campaign. And when I first saw it, I was not excited. And I'm not sure why. It's not because I like candy less than chips. It might be partially because in my mind, Lay's did it first, so Lay's did it best, and this feels like a following. But I think I have another reason, potentially. But I feel like with M&Ms, there have already been so many variations done that variations on M&Ms are not exciting me in the same way that when I saw an announcement that they were trying to bring a new flavor to the forefront in chips.
I think it's somewhat exciting. Maybe it's just the size of M&Ms. That's what pops into my head. They're like tiny, and from my experience, they all kind of taste the same, except for, the peanut butter tastes different, obviously, than the chocolate, but when you get into like the birthday cake flavors, which are reviewed on the website, they don't taste that much different than chocolate. I think there's only so much you can do with kind of a small chocolate round orb.
All right, well, here are the 3 candidates. Now, it's all peanut M&Ms in the competition. We have the new flavors that we'll be able to vote on starting in March 2016 are chili nut, honey nut, and coffee nut, competing with original peanut. I don't feel like I need to taste these to know what my favorites are going to be and which one are going to work. Now, again, obviously I'm going to taste them and I will give it a fair assessment, but I'm not as intrigued or curious about these flavors as I am about the chip flavors. Do any of those get you excited?
Not really. I think I'm picturing them all tasting similar. I mean, coffee will taste like coffee. I think you can picture what they're going to taste like in your mind, right. Whereas with an outlandish chip flavor, you can't really quite picture it. Like biscuits and gravy potato chips, what does that taste like? Whereas if you say coffee nut M&Ms, like I can immediately picture, it's going to taste like coffee.
I think the chili nut might be the most bold and then, by my opinion, the most exciting with the most potential to it, and I'm excited to try that one.
The honey I can't imagine will stand out that much because it's such a sweet food to begin with. But yeah, I think something spicy is kind of intriguing.
So the other thing I wanted to mention is I'm looking at the press kit for this M&M brand Vote Your Favorite Peanut promotion. I love marketing copy, and so I want to just let everyone know there's a section called the why, and first it says that under the why are they doing this promotion? Because it leverages the iconic brand of M&Ms with America's most beloved, quote, spokes creatures in the M&Ms characters. Then it goes on to say that the M&Ms Vote for Your Favorite Peanut promotion is geared toward the millennial generation consumers, the largest in U.S. history with 92 million people, who are creating an evolution in snacking. These consumers want brand manufacturers to ask for input on new products, enjoy trying new or ethnic cuisines, and are 4 times more likely to share opinions on social media. This generation has declined in both penetration and buy rate over the last 4 years in the chocolate category, indicating an opportunity for growth.
This sounds like inside marketing information. Where are you getting this?
This is right on the M&M Mars Press Kit website, and that's why I was so excited to read this. I mean, this is, you hear so much about the millennials nowadays. Well, here's a real clear assessment on how millennials are treating chocolate. We all hear that they're lazy at work, but at least they have potential here.
Hungry Dads. All right, so we are pleased and honored today to have what I'm pretty confident is our first Turducken C-level executive on the show. Mike Moser from Echelon Foods has joined us. Thanks for coming on, Mike.
Glad to be here.
So, Mike, I think our listeners, the first thing right off the bat they want to know is kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. I think people want to know how you become an executive in the turducken business.
It's not something you plan, let me put it that way.
That's too bad, because I've been planning to become a turducken executive for
You did not dream of being a turducken executive at the age of 6?
No, I didn't go to university with that in mind. I spent 25 years in the packaged goods business selling chewing gum for Wrigley's and a number of different products. And 6 years ago, my business partner, and actually the person that founded the Turducken was working with a deli in a small town selling 400 turduckens a year online and selling to local people, and built up this following. I said, I know some people in the business. So I approached a retail chain that has about 25 stores. They had a meat managers meeting. We did a taste test of our turducken versus 2 other competitive products. And the vote was 23 people chose ours. We rolled it out to that chain, and then we just grew from there. After we were doing about $500,000 a year, I became a full-time C-level turducken executive.
I think a lot of people, including myself, considered turducken kind of a niche, maybe manly thing. You've got 3 birds all stuffed together and a lot of meat on the table. I imagine there's a big influx during the holidays. But are people starting to eat turduckens as part of other celebrations, weddings? Have you seen any birthdays, bar mitzvahs?
Yeah, it is still heavily seasonal. We're about 90% of our total sales are still in that pre-Thanksgiving to Christmas window. Last year, we launched a bacon-wrapped turducken roast, and it is as good as it sounds. It's bacon on the inside and the outside. And we started selling that as a pre-Super Bowl, again, online, and moved some significant numbers there. So we are starting to branch out a little bit, but it is still predominantly, people think turkey, think turducken. That's Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year. That's the window. So as much as we'd love to take some of that seasonality out of the business, and we've launched some of the smaller size turduckens.
I'm just shooting from the hip here, Mike, but what about the Arbor Day turducken?
Oh, I get an email a day saying, hey, I found pie cake, which is a triple pie, and anything that's something stuffed into something.
Are you threatened by the pie caken, or is this an opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity. It's anything that raises awareness.
You're based in Canada, but it's distributed pretty much throughout the United States, if I'm not mistaken.
We are based in Calgary. Our head office is here, but actually our production it's all made in the U.S. There's some crazy government rules in Canada, so it's actually better and cheaper for us to make it in the U.S. And
is it true you can't stuff a bird with another bird in the Canadian provinces?
Not without a permit.
Yes, yeah. It's a protected market for the turkey suppliers in Canada. And unfortunately, with NAFTA, the free trade agreement, we can make our turduckens in the U.S. and ship them free up to Canada as well.
That is how many turduckens can cross the country lines, right?
Yeah. Why did the turducken cross the road? Yeah, because of the free trade agreement.
Your very own Rod Budget had the privilege of preparing and serving the Turducken Premium Roast with Italian sausage stuffing. It was the easiest bird I have ever done.
No, Rod. Easiest birds you've ever done.
If our listeners will remember last Thanksgiving, I came down hard on turkey, and one of my reasons was nobody can agree on how to prepare a turkey. There's a lot of competing opinions. There's a lot of passionate arguments. Do you brine? Do you stuff? Do you not stuff? Slow and low, or do you do it at a higher heat? I gotta say, this turducken, I just sat it in the oven on a 220 for like 7 hours, and it came out beautifully. It was excellent, and I'm not just saying that for Mike's benefit. I would tell our listeners if it was less than outstanding, and my biggest compliment to it is we had gravy on the table, and not one person used gravy.
I actually had a turducken last year, but I did it the old-fashioned way.
Which is not advisable, is it, Mike? This was a terrible idea from the get-go. Have you ever heard of anyone trying to prepare their own turducken from scratch?
Not in spending less than 10 hours doing it.
We covered this last year in our Thanksgiving episode, but as a quick version, I bought 3 birds. Then I went about deboning. It really looked like an episode of Dexter in my kitchen. Skin and fat and meat and oil and everything all over the place. I cut myself significantly. I think I fairly successfully made a turducken. It was a pain, but I pulled it off. And I was underwhelmed with the duck because the skin was very rubbery and pretty unappealing.
We do remove the duck skin, so
I thought so.
That is one of the secrets. So the duck and the chicken that's inside the turducken is boneless, skinless. That's how you take some of that mushiness that you experience out of the product. Some moisture you might miss from the skin, you gain through the stuffing that we use.
I remember remarking on how little meat there was in the duck. Maybe I just bought a bum duck, but it was all skin. And I wanted to take the skin off, but if I took the skin off, I had no duck left. So do you have nice fat ducks that you could skin and still have some duck left over?
I think you got a skinny duck.
I think I got rooked on the duck.
I think somebody sold you a pigeon.
Turpigeon.
The skin is much fatter on a duck than you would typically see on a turkey or chicken for sure. In our case, we have to double up the duck, for example.
Got it. So there might be 2 ducks in a turducken to make enough duck in that layer.
Yes, and we're using duck breast side by side so that when you do slice through it, every slice gets turkey, chicken, duck, and then the stuffing.
Yeah, and to that end, I think what everybody wants to know is how these things get made. There's geometry involved, there's science, there's chemistry. You can't have a small turkey and a giant duck, I assume. All these have to be kind of proportional.
So instead of it being chicken inside a duck, it's actually layered in so that every time you slice through it, you're getting some chicken, turkey, and duck. The outside is all turkey, and the turkey is the centerpiece of the turducken, and that's why it gets the first 3 letters of the word. Take that middle carcass of the turkey out, and then we layer in the chicken, and then we layer in the sausage, we layer in another row of duck, and then we layer in sausage. We pull the skin and the turkey up around it, and then you stitch it up. So when you cut through the full turducken in the middle, it's totally boneless. And the drums and the wings are still there on the outside, so it still looks like a turkey, but that middle is all turducken. For the boneless roast, which is shaped like a football, we remove the drums and the wings. Same thing, we layer, and then you fold it back up, and then we put it into netting. So instead of stitching it up like you do with the full turducken, the roast goes into netting.
On the farm, I assume the 3 birds are raised on different farms, or are they all kind of on the same farm? Are they all kind of in a similar proximity, or are they all kind of mingling and hanging out?
We all bring them in from separate farms, so all from generally from the U.S. Midwest, but all different farms. So
I think Rod was just hoping that you maybe had some sort of giant farm laboratory where you were crossbreeding them.
I was picturing an actual turducken being a live creature.
Like a Frankenstein's,
Yes.
yeah.
Is that in the future?
They have genetically spliced, and I think it was the chicken and the duck, Molly the sheep kind of thing, have been genetically spliced. But we have had people say, is there such a thing as a turducken?
We should perpetuate the myth.
Free-range turduckens.
If they were to hang out together, they're quite different animals, all 3 of them, right? So I'm not sure they would be the best of friends.
Who would win a fight between a chicken, a turkey, and a duck? I think this is the big question of the night.
Well, I mean, if you break it down, the turkey's got a huge size advantage. The chicken is nimble and fast, and the duck's only chance is if he can take the fight over water or into the water. So
don't underestimate the duck. I don't know. I kind of have a feeling that the duck is kind of like a swan.
Well, he's fat. He's a fat.
The ducks are mean, though, man. Like, people think ducks are nice, but I think the duck's gonna pull out like a pocket knife and just go to town.
I don't know. I think they're just fatzos. We've seen their skin.
Yeah. Well, if it gets into the air, the duck's got an advantage for sure.
How does it get from 3 into 1? I don't imagine you have a team with rubber gloves taking the birds apart and putting them back together. So is it mechanized?
No, it's a highly manual process.
Oh, really?
The whole turkey comes in. We have 14 people on the line making these things, and they'll start in the morning and they start deboning the turkey, which is the biggest part of the whole exercise. So we bring in the chicken and the duck, whole cut meat, ready to go. But it's a manual process. There is some automation for the packaging and what have you. But
So a team of 14 deboners.
14 people working on the line, yeah.
So how many turduckens can you guys pump out in a day with 14 deboners and mainly a manual process?
If we're doing full turduckens, we'll do 260-ish a day.
Wow.
One shift, and we'll do about 360 to 370 roasts in a day.
Wow.
So in a week, generally, we'll make about 1,500 turduckens.
Hugh accomplished 1 turducken in 4 days.
It's harder than it looks, the deboning part. One of the secrets is that you don't want to damage the skin. You want to keep your skin intact because you need the skin to sew it back up, right?
Mike, you mentioned earlier getting serious questions about whether there was an actual turducken animal. You have other customer service ridiculous questions that you get?
Sometimes I wonder if some of the questions come in are serious. Can I eat the twine? Well, it's butcher's twine, it's food grade, but no, would you eat string? We get a lot of people and actually I've had one person who swears he was successfully able to deep fry it, just recently told me that, but we've tried it and the outside was charred by the time the inside was cooked to the 165 degrees you need to make it safe to eat? Those are the typical kinds of questions that we get.
So you guys have done some fry testing, and so far it hasn't panned out?
When you're cooking in oil, the middle of it, there's no cavity, right? So it's not like there's 3 inches of meat on the outside and there's 7 inches solid all the way through of meat. So the outside is cooked well before the inside can be cooked. What they do is they poke holes through them to try and let the oil get into the middle and cook the inside out. But you need big, significant chunks. You're taking away 40% of your turducken to be able to do it.
This sounds like a challenge, Hugh. Future episode.
Yeah, all I need to do is burn my house down. I'm done with turducken experiments. What's the reaction you get when you're meeting with a new client? Like Rod said in the beginning, they're kind of niche, and I think they're kind of kitschy still. Do you embrace the kitschiness? Do you want them to be kind of not kitschy and mainstream? Or I guess both could be attractive depending on the pitch. What kind of pitch do you give, and what kind of reaction do you get when you start talking to clients about turducken?
Yeah, good question. We have fun. We know what's fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously, but what we do is serious because we're asking a consumer to pay $60 for a roast or $80 or $85 for a turducken. Yes, it's feeding a lot of people. It's feeding 12 to 15 on the turducken, for example. I put the cartoon in the presentation about the turkey, duck, and chicken sleeping together, and that's how the turducken's made. But, we're serious about the support we put behind it and having it as an alternative Thanksgiving, Christmas, Super Bowl thing as an alternative product. Buyers at the major chains, they've heard of it, they carry it seasonally. So it's usually a matter of why should I carry yours over the competitor's product? We reach out and do PR and media, and we'll do in-store support activities. So everybody, they've got 20 feet of turkeys at Thanksgiving. Carve out 1 or 2 feet and put something unique and new.
And not only at the retail establishments, but it's a showstopper when you serve it too. I mean, I think that's part of the appeal. You pull out a turducken wrapped in bacon, I mean, that's a conversation piece right there.
And wrapped in bacon, and there's bacon on the inside too. So we get, there's a double kick of bacon in there.
Bacon wrapped in bacon. I like that.
You can probably just pass on the turducken and just have bacon wrapped bacon football.
Yeah.
Mike, where can we find you? Where can we find your turduckens, social media, web pages, and stuff like that?
The best spot would be echelonfoods.com, and there's links to our Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram there. Our Twitter handle is at Echelon Foods. Echelon is ECHELON.
And I can speak from experience. This is well worth the effort, or the lack thereof, I should say. It's a showstopper. The taste is delicious. I still have a few leftovers in the fridge downstairs. After the show, I'm going straight down there to have, I think I'm going to have duck tonight. It's a buffet of bird down there. That's one thing. The leftovers, you got 3 different birds left. You can pick and choose. So thank you very much, Mike, for joining us. It's been a pleasure learning more about the turducken process, and I look forward to maybe speaking with you again in the future. Good luck over the holiday season.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
After the interview, we went back to Mike with some questions. During the interview, we just didn't get to everything we wanted to get to, and Mike was kind enough to respond via email. First of all, Mike mentions his partner and a founder of the turducken, and we wanted to be clear if his partner was like the founder of the turducken, like the turducken inventor. And in fact, he was clear, his partner is not the inventor of the turducken. His partner is just the one who invented their style of turducken. He was kind enough to give us this trivia. The turducken came to North America as a Cajun product from Paul Prudhomme. You're the French guy, Rod. How do I pronounce that? Prudhomme?
I don't even know what you're saying. You're so far off. Padome.
Paul Prudhomme, who passed away recently, sadly. Their founder is the founder of their style turducken. The other question we asked, and it was not a joke of a question, serious marketing question. From our experience in advertising and marketing, every aspect of a product's name is considered and scrutinized and worried over at length. And we wondered if Mike had considered it a marketing challenge in any way to be selling a food product that started with the word turd. In a turducken. He was kind enough to answer that question as well, and he said, yes, it has. We put an emphasis on the tur when spoken, turducken, pronunciation, and try to overcome that. Turducken is a product, so they don't have a lot of choice with the name, but all their branding is now Echelon Foods, and it allows them to branch out. They did consider some other names, like in Australia, he said it's called a 3-bird roast, but they decided turducken is the product name established in North America, so they stuck with it. Even though it starts with turd, they emphasize it starts with tur. I think that's a good answer, and I appreciate him answering it.
Yeah, I guess they go from biggest bird to smallest, that's why it's turducken, but they could go smallest to biggest.
Chidutter?
Turducker.
It does not roll off the tongue in the same way. I think Turducken's the way to go.
Hungry Dads. Visit our website at hungrydads.com. Follow us on Twitter at hungry_dads. This has been a Hungry Dads production.
I'm ready to start, I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Wait.
Oh, we're doing the intro. Sorry. Forgot we hadn't done an intro yet.
No, we haven't done it. We're breaking up like we're the Carol Burnett Show.